Recording here. We are officially recording. Let me unshare my screen and you can open the meeting.
Okay. So I would like to call the meeting to order for the Zion Cemetery Preservation and Maintenance Society Board. Today is May 20th, 2021, and it's actually 4:37. So can we have a roll call
Yes.
at this time?
Emery,
Clark Simmons. Brian Presley.
Present.
Fred Hearns.
Here.
Reva Iman.
Here.
Yvette Lewis. Yvette Lewis. Connie Burton. Connie Burton. Dennis Creech. Dennis Creech. And Leroy Moore.
present.
Thank you.
Okay, and should Richard Gonsmart's name have been called?
Yes, we have those two seats, Gunsmark and Crease, are on our board. They are not participating in the meeting generally, and that's okay. That has been okay by us because, you know, we have not yet agreed on getting their lands assembled
Right.
in the group, but they are officially named as board members. I think you skipped over Gunsmart, Amrita.
Richard Gunsmart. Richard Gunsmart. Thank you.
Okay. Okay, so thank you, Amrita. Do we have any public comment at this point?
Hi, this is Toyin Hargret with the City Attorney's Office. Can I proceed?
Yes, please.
Great, thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. I just wanted to mention that I don't know if this is something that can be done without a quorum. It seems pretty ministerial, but I would just be recommending that your committee move forward with establishing a bank account and requesting transfer of the funds from the city, the county, and especially the state. We've already gone through another legislative session, which has concluded. I think there's a special session going on now, but so much time has passed and we don't want anything to affect the money that's been appropriated. We want to just go ahead and make sure that it's in your hands. So that I would just say, as you know, a participant, that I would encourage the board to do that as soon as possible. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Attorney Hargret. At this point, I don't believe we actually have any funds with which to open a bank account, do we, Leroy?
We do have officially, and that's on the agenda. So we're going to review the funding date on the agenda. But we do have commitments for funding and actually approved funding, but we need to create the mechanism to receive it.
Okay, good. Okay. So thank you again, Attorney. That was well noted. And are there any other public comments at this point?
I have a comment, Mr. Hearns. My comment is to the board. Can you hear me?
Yes, just say your name for the record and then you can start.
Oh, okay. Barbara Lee Thomas. And I just want to make a observation and probably give you a suggestion. Moving forward, once you get a quorum and can actually discuss this, see about getting more board members because, you know, there's not a quorum here now. and the meeting went out well enough time. We've even changed the time so that people who wanted to attend was able to attend. So maybe that's something that the board can look at soon.
Thank you. And I think we are going to address that today. Vacancies on the board, that's actually coming up after we approve our minutes. So that is on today's agenda. I don't know if everybody got a copy of today's agenda, but it is listed. So we will address that shortly. So thank you, Barbara. Yeah, well noted. I agree. And we are going to take that up. Do we have any other public comments? Okay, hearing none. Let's move to approval of minutes from April 2021.
And Mr. Chair, since we do not have a quorum, I don't think we can move or take action on any of the agenda items that require action.
Okay, we will not approve those minutes. We'll do that when we have a quorum. But hopefully everybody got a copy of the minutes so you can look at them for future action. So with that, under new business, the first thing on the agenda under new business is the item of vacancies on the board. We do know that our bylaws call for 2 seats on the board by descendants of those persons buried at Zion. So let me just say to the board members present, and we will of course take this up at our next meeting, if anyone is aware of any descendants of those persons buried at the Zion Cemetery, I guess the thing to do would be to have them contact either me or our secretary treasurer or our vice president. Or I guess they can contact Amrita, I imagine. But we need to have those names. We need to know who those persons are. At a meeting when we have a quorum, we can take up filling those 2 vacancies. But I'd like the word to go out today, if it hasn't already gone out, that we are looking for 2 persons to fill those 2 vacant seats of descendants. And we've got several names. They're actually on the covering on the fence at Zion. So we know the names of many of the descendants. And other persons may have information that's not listed for all to see on the fencing. So Vice President or Secretary Treasurer, anyone else want to add anything to what I've just said?
Yeah, Mr. Chair, I'd just like to share also, I'm sharing the screen. This is our board membership application form that can be used to give consideration to the board of any prospects for our board and for any vacant positions. And I'll just briefly go over this form that can be used. It just spells out our purpose, and this is straight from our bylaws, what the purpose of the Zion Preservation Maintenance Society board is. Just some basic contact information, our phone number. It essentially comes to my office. Our membership, this is what our membership consists of. 2 Robles Park Village residents, those 2 slots are filled. 1 NAACP local chapter member, that position is filled. First Mount Carmel AME Church membership is filled. Ownership, Tampa Housing Authority is being filled. Gunsmark ownership and Crease ownership, those slots are filled. although not present on the board, because we would rather those two representatives start participating once their land is actively part of the planning process for the Zion Cemetery Memorial. But they can participate if they wish to. Then the two lineal descendants of Zion Cemetery, those are the two currently vacant positions on our board. We do have the African American history degree or expert filled by our chair, and one local community activist slot is also filled. So all those positions on the board is filled except the two descendants of Zion. So if you know anyone that is a descendant of Zion that you would like for them to consider becoming a board member, you can present this form to that individual, have them indicate that they're applying for one of the two descendant positions, give some basic information, name, phone number, email, address, and then a very brief description of why they are interested in serving this community in the capacity of a board member. Just some basic information for us to do as an intake so that we can then bring it to the board and present nominees to the board for a vote in future meetings. So it'll be great before we get a whole lot done as the Preservation Society to have the descendants of Zion actually part of this organization. So the sooner the better, I think, in terms of getting the positions and the slots filled. We will include this form in the minutes, but if anyone wants a copy of it before then, just shoot me an email and I'll email the form out to them.
Thank you, Mr. Moore. I would ask that the board members who are current receive a copy of that form, so everybody, if it's emailed out to everybody, then we'll have it in the event that we're able to identify somebody who qualifies. So any comments on the form? I want to thank you for the work you've done. Anyone have any other comments?
I do have a comment. I want to ask, there's several seats that individuals are not showing up, and this is very important to what we do in this community, especially Rovers with the cemetery. And I know that there's assigned board member seats that they're there. Is there any way possible that we can reallocate those seats to, I know you say NAACP and activists and things of those natures, but if we're not getting the participation of these individuals, is there a way that we can go in and reassign those seats that fit the community, or even open those seats up to the community?
Okay, anyone else want to respond?
Well, looking, and I just have to see how this worked, but I know when you're dealing with the church and you have a board or even an organization that I'm a part of, Friends of the Children, the Tampa chapter, after so many missed meetings, a letter is written to that board member and asking the board member whether or not they are going to participate, and based on, their level of participation, if not, they are normally removed from the board. I just left a board meeting in Tampa with my chapter, mentoring program that I'm part of. And we just had that discussion, and it was similar to this, two board members who never showed up for nothing. So a letter is being sent out to them asking what is their participation level, or do they just want to be a part of just coming to meetings when they feel like it. But we did ask that question because honestly, if they're not participating or doing anything, it's hard to get a quorum. It's hard to get anything done and pass by. So that's my thoughts, Ms. Emma. That's how we do it where I work at, and even with the church.
Thank you, Pastor Presley. Anyone else have any comments?
Yeah, I would just add that our bylaws does spell out a mechanism for removing board members. My recommendation would always be, let's grow our board before we thin out our board. We do have 2 vacant slots. And the nature of some of our appointed positions really sort of we should be able to document over a period of time. We've only been meeting for, since January, and we've only had 2 official meetings where we've had a quorum. So I would certainly go a year before we start looking at attendance and start removing board members due to poor attendance. But at some point, I think it's appropriate for us to, get to that point. I would not do that in our first 12 months. I would work on expanding our board until it's fully seated.
And Mr. Moore, I definitely agree with you on that. And just to piggyback on what I said, that's what we did. It was really more than a year. And we just finally made that decision because, there were things we did need to pass and go forward with. And without a quorum, we couldn't do it. And so they were really holding us back as to moving forward with what our goal and objective was. So I agree with you on that.
Good, thank you.
Okay, thank you, Pastor and Mr. Moore. I think all of those present have commented. I do have a comment too, because the bylaws do address removal and resignation of directors. It's under section 10, very brief paragraph. Let me just read it.
Yeah.
And if you have your bylaws, it's page
All
4.
right, take care. Be careful.
Page 4 of the bylaws, section 10, removal and resignation. Any director may be removed by the board of directors with or without cause at any meeting of the board of directors. But such removal shall be without prejudice to the contractual rights, if any, of the person removed. A director may resign at any time by delivering notice to the corporation. A resignation shall be effective when the notice is delivered, unless the notice specifies a later effective date. A director's resignation may not affect the corporation's contractual rights, if any, with the director. I'm going to ask Attorney Hargret, if she's still on the line, if she can sort of help us to interpret. Some of this language is a little legalese, I would say, and I'm not 1000% clear on it myself, especially where it talks about without prejudice to the contractual rights. Can you help us here, Attorney Hargret, with just interpreting what this paragraph means?
Sure. There are really no contractual rights of the board members. You all have not taken any action. That would mean perhaps if there was some sort of an appointment to maybe a third party group or some sort of participation, but I don't really see that as being something that you all should be concerned with at this time. That section is pretty clear, though, that resignation is pretty much self-effectuating. The other aspect of that section really requires quorum in order to get that done. So you all are between a rock and a hard place in that you can't get quorum to take action, to make it easier to take action. So I heard what Pastor Presley said, but another thing that you all can consider, to incorporate Mr. Moore's consideration of not thinning out the board before you grow the board would be to, when you finally do get a quorum, allow for an alternate member to attend. If that can be done, then perhaps the NAACP can provide a backup person for either the position of Ms. Lewis or Ms. Burton if they do not have interest or they are unable to attend meetings. And I think that that would be something that as a body, the NAACP or any activist group could stand behind, because the point of this board is to get things done. So that would be another suggestion until you can get out of that being between a rock and a hard place. I'm sorry, I don't have anything concrete. It really wasn't contemplated that it would be this difficult. There was such strong interest initially. So this is really taking a left turn. But I understand your concerns. You just got to bear with it until you ultimately get a quorum and get as much done at that meeting as you can with respect to assigning alternates, ensuring maybe a certain number of meetings before someone has self-resigned. Just get as many things done as possible. So maybe before the next meeting, sort of not amongst yourself, but list the things that you would like to see, vote on them, and get them done. So I hope that's helpful. I apologize that I can't be more helpful, but I understand your circumstance.
Thank you. Yeah, that is very helpful to me. Let me ask Mr. Moore a question as it relates to the 2 vacancies for descendants of persons buried at Zion. If we're able to identify people who are descendants, who are interested, can we, and we put this out to everybody on the board, so hopefully it'll be in the minutes and go out as soon as we can get the minutes out. Can we have those descendants at the next meeting and possibly vote them in as members at the next meeting?
Sure.
Or what
Yeah, I don't
do
see
you
any
think
reason-
about that?
I don't see any reason why not. And at your request earlier, Amrita is going to be sending out the application form to all our current board members.
Right.
So if you haven't already gotten it, it's probably going to be sending you an email before you get off the call today. And if you know of a direct descendant, we're going to need them to provide us with, some evidence that they're related to, a descendant of Zion. And just fill out that form, get that form back to us. We can send it out ahead of the next board meeting so that at the next board meeting, we can actually be voting on adding members to the board if we meet a quorum. We'll have to meet quorum in order to vote. So yes, we'll be
Okay.
Can I ask a question before we move forward? And I'm just using the experience I have serving on the board. I know we don't have a quorum, and sometimes there is not a quorum, but when it comes to like getting other board members to be approved by the board, what I have seen and what we've done in the past, and I don't know, the attorney can correct me if I'm wrong, but what we've done is we've done it through not Zoom, but through email. And we got confirmation back that way, as well as to approve the possibility of the new board members.
That would probably be, and I apologize, I think they're having a function outside, so you might have heard some parade-like noises, but that would be one of the types of things that you can consider putting before the board when you do get a quorum. Doing something such as maybe ministerial acts can be voted on by way of an email. That's a motion you can make to make things easier. Maybe you also make a motion that you lower the number for quorum. You can also make a motion perhaps that you can send out all of the, when you send out your agenda ahead of time, people can sort of vote maybe, or they can proxy. But there's a lot of things you can do. But again, you got to have a quorum and then be ready to kind of rapid fire, make those motions, get them done. Another thing, and I'm not sure about this one, I'd have to research Robert's rules, but perhaps you can have something such that when there is a quorum established at the beginning of the meeting, there's a quorum established. That way, if there are any issues with, let's say, personalities, such that maybe you don't have a full quorum at the end, that they have waived their right to vote on any subsequent motions for that particular meeting. These are all things that you can consider, but I would suggest that you kind of list all the things that you'd like and rapid fire get them done as soon as you get a quorum.
We're keeping the list.
Okay. all excellent points, but I guess it still gets to us having at least 5 members at a meeting before we can take action on what's been recommended. Which is going to be a challenge. it's going to be a challenge. And here's my thing: I never want to be unfair to the people who are attending the meetings. It's not fair to those folk. And so I'm offering my apology to the members who are present. And there are some things I would like to say, but I won't say them. But I think we all of our time is valuable. There's nobody here who has any time to waste. So with that being said, any other comments on the vacancies on the board? For informational purposes, there are some other things I'd like to get to before we adjourn.
Yeah, I'd just like to just sort of, make note of the fact that we're board of 9 currently, now, and it requires a quorum of 5. When we add the 2 descendants, we will be a board of 11. We will require a total of 6 to meet quorum. But with, with those 2 extras today, we would have met quorum. I think the effort should be on getting descendants, getting them added to the board so that we can vote on a slate of items to amend our bylaws to allow us to administratively, get our business done, with smaller than a majority of the board member as meeting a quorum. But I will, go ahead.
Yeah, I have not spoken to Mr. Gonsmark or Mr. Crease. I know other members of our board have spoken to them. Could they assign someone, because they have people working for them, could they assign someone to represent them
Yes.
on this board?
Yeah, they could. I would just advise not to elicit them into the board actions until they are actively committed to being part of the Zion restoration.
Okay.
And that could be very soon, but I think we can meet quorum going forward if we can get 2 people seated from the descendants. And if they attend the meetings, we will meet quorum.
Okay. All very good comments. Anyone else before we move on? Okay, if not, for informational purposes, then the next item, State of Florida Task Force on Lost Cemeteries.
Yes, Mr. Chair, just an informational item. I did get a phone call from State Senator Janet Cruz to let me know that her sponsored bill, Senate Bill 222, did pass the Florida Senate. If you would recall, Finch Driscoll in the House and Janet Cruz in the Senate, both sponsored bills. And the bill has now been approved by the Senate, has not yet been signed into law by the governor. But that bill essentially creates a statewide task force headed up by the state to actively go throughout the state and look for abandoned, lost African-American cemeteries. It's one of the efforts that we originally advocated for when we were meeting as the Archaeological Advisory Committee. And it's just good to see that piece of legislation passed. And we're hopeful that when it is signed into law, we will have some kind of a press conference at Zion Cemetery to announce that. And we would look forward to, if there's a role for the Zion Cemetery Committee to at least participate or follow that process over the next year I think it's going to eventually result in some resources, new resources for cemeteries like Zion and others throughout the state to be able to apply for that would help with the restoration efforts going forward. So I just wanted to make note of that. We do have a copy of that. I will include that in the minutes as well. And we previously passed it out, but this would be the final version of that bill.
Okay, well, that is good news, Mr. Moore. Thank you very much. Any comments from any board members?
And I don't know if anyone,
I do have a comment. I briefly haven't seen it yet, but I think there's a grant that the state of Florida has that would serve a purpose if we can get that grant that will help out too. I haven't got the full details of it yet, but a lot of funding just came out. And it's really, to me, based upon me and someone talking, it's kind of target what Zion is about. But I have to find more details of it. And we might want to have to try to go after that grant as well.
support. Absolutely.
Okay, thank you. Let me ask, can you all still, I'm assuming you can hear me. Can you still see me on screen?
Yes, Fred, we see you.
Okay,
Yes.
all my visuals are frozen.
Okay.
So I'm glad you can hear me. My visuals are frozen for some reason, but okay, any other comments on the Lost Cemeteries Task Force? So we will have to thank Senator Cruz next time we have an opportunity to communicate with her. Hello?
No, I think that
I
was.
heard something in the background.
Yeah, that was someone's mic. I've muted him out.
Oh, okay. Okay, thank you, Mr. Moore. Any other comments before we move on? Okay, review of the budget estimates.
Yes, so I previously shared this budget with the board, so I just wanted to put it back on the agenda, just once again to keep fresh on everybody's mind what's ahead in terms of identifying funding to both acquire the individual pieces that are not yet committed and to restore Zion Cemetery to a memorial park, and to also develop the planned genealogy center. But this is the budget we previously shared. This is, a lot of assumptions on here. These are just estimates, but we needed to at least get a handle on what kind of possible future needs there is. So land acquisition, as you can see here, I showed increased property. I show it as a donation. I guarantee you they're not going to see it as a donation when we actually start meeting with them, but it's a cemetery now. It does not have a whole lot of sale value from a market standpoint. So we would typically want to approach them in the negotiations as making that property as a donation to the nonprofit Zion Preservation Society. Crease also owns a second piece of land that is immediately adjacent to Zion. The acquisition of the cemetery part of his property, I think, would render the rest of his land less usable by him, for purposes of his business. So I think it's a take one or take all proposition when we start negotiating with that particular landowner. So I've just put a dollar amount in there that's based on me looking at the tax records and just, assuming, what's a good, value to throw at it. Of course, we'll eventually get appraisal. And, that's sort of what I represented by Crease property number 2. And when I get through with the budget, I'll share it on the map just so that everybody has a good reference of these lands that I'm talking about. And then the THA property, that's that is cemetery. It's approximately 1.5 acres. We've already committed to donating that land with HUD approval. We have to go through a HUD approval process, but that's a commitment we had made some time ago. And then the Gunsmark property as well. The whole of Gunsmark's property does have interments on it, so we would be seeking that as a donation. Once again, the property owner, I'm sure is gonna, seek a value for that, but we want to start with 0 and we can go up. I'd rather not start with a number and then have to go higher. Then the design services for actually designing the memorial, $200,000. A historic marker is the least costly of all of the items. That's well below $10,000. I've estimated $7,500. Site fencing and gates and banners, $5,000. The demolition of those structures that are actually sitting on top of Zion now. We have 5 buildings sitting on top of Zion. Gunsmark have 2 buildings sitting on top of Zion. Creek property does not have any.
Wanted me to talk about something else.
Creek property does not have any buildings on it, but there will be a cost of demolishing those structures. And I've inflated that number from what a typical demolition cost would be, primarily because we'll have to undertake that work under observation and guidance and management from our archaeology team. And when you get down to the actual foundations of those buildings, there's a lot of careful hand work that has to be done in order not to disturb any of the contents of the graves that are buried beneath these buildings. But the vertical of the buildings all need to be removed down so that we can create the park center. Then the park development cost, I've estimated a $5 million build out cost to actually develop that park into the type of memorial park that we've all talked about. So that's a total of almost 5.8 million. And then the Genealogy Research Center, I've thrown a number of about 1.9 million toward that as a 7,500 square foot facility. So all total shy of $8 million in total needs for that site. Let me just give you a little bit of companion. Let me stop sharing, and then I just want to share the map just so that you can have a visual representation of those parcels that I'm talking about. Just give me a second here. So if anyone asks you, how much money you need for Zion, $8 million is a good number to throw out. $6 million is a good number to throw out for the park. $2 million is a good number to throw out for the Genealogy Center. I just wanted to make sure that all of us as board members are sort of speaking, and able to speak on these matters when you have the opportunity. You may find yourself, in certain circles that can benefit us greatly if you already have a good control of what those numbers are. So you should be able to see the Google Earth image now. This is Robles Park Village, of course, and the Zion area is over here. So Zion, let me straighten the map up for you a little. So Zion Cemetery, if you see, everybody see my cursor, the hand? You can see that. So Zion Cemetery.
I can't see anything, but go ahead.
Okay, Reba, can you see it? Okay.
I can see it, yes.
Okay. So these are the 2 Gunsmark buildings. This is the Dennis Crease property here. The Dennis Crease property that is a cemetery is right here. It's this heavy wooded area back here. Okay, so approximately the square that I'm drawing with the cursor here is cemetery. We verified that bodies are buried there. We've also tested outside and found no bodies here. So this is the clean part of the Crease property. Our effort would be to acquire both parcels from Crease, because this gives us clean land that we can build a building on. We would not want to build a building on our cemetery land. So this would then be the site for the genealogy center here. And then the cemetery would be all of the rest. As my cursor goes, it's through the middle of these buildings. This is Robles Park Village apartment building. We've relocated these 5 buildings. So half of this building, the line goes from Florida Avenue down the Crease property to the middle of the building, down these 3 buildings, down to the front steps of this 4th building, and then all the way across back to Florida Avenue. That's the outline of the cemetery. So these 5 buildings, building 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, would be demolished for the cemetery. These 2 buildings would have to be demolished for the cemetery. So that gives you a visual of what that whole area would look like. And that gives you a good budget idea of the kind of resources that we're going to need in order to develop the site. All total, and let me go back to my budget share real quick and finish that. So this is the budget again. At the very bottom of the budget, I have funding projections. So far we have the state of Florida has actually voted and approved and allocated $50,000 to Zion, as well as several other cemeteries in the Tampa Bay area. This $50,000 has been included in a state budget. It's there. I've had one meeting with State Representative Janet Cruz and the state people administering this budget. And we've talked about the fact that once we have created the bank account, we can then submit to the state our plan for utilizing this $50,000, and we then can start drawing down this $50,000. The expiration of that $50,000, based on my meeting with them, I think it was back in November or December, is the end of this year. And I'll reconfirm that once I reach back out to them, because it's been 5 or 6 months since we spoke. So the end of the year, I believe, is the time whereby we need to have our bank account created. We need to have our budget, which we've got it together now, and we need to be able to put in a draw to the state. The state can transmit that $50,000 into a 501c3. We're not yet 501c3. We've got to get our 501c3 designation. But they said to us over the phone that they would transfer it into another 501c3 to be held for the Zion effort if we do not have our 501c3 formed in time. So of course, Tampa Housing Authority has a 501c3. State Senator Cruz mentioned another 501c3 that she could utilize as well if we needed to. And then both Hillsborough County as well as the city of Tampa have made commitments to fund $50,000 each toward the Zion effort. So as you can see, we've got 150,000, 150,000 committed toward our efforts. There's also some eligibility. We'll have to find out from the city and the county what are those eligible items that we can use that $50,000 on. The eligible items from the state of Florida has described its use as toward a memorial for Zion Cemetery. As I showed you in our budget, a memorial plaque is a very, is fairly inexpensive, $5,000 to $75,000. We've got $50,000. So our description to them of the memorial is the memorial park, the actual whole park plan. You've got to design it, you've got to acquire land for it, and you've got to build it. So when we reach out to the state, the effort there is going to be being able to use a part of that to acquire land for Zion, to design Zion and toward the construction cost of Zion. If there are any questions about the budget before I take it down. And we will include this in your minutes as well. I know a lot of this is hard to see on the screen, especially if you're using your cell phone. All right, Mr. Chair, that was all I need, and that's all I wanted to say on that.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Moore. Yes, unfortunately, my screen is frozen, so I haven't been able to see any of this, but some of it, most of it I'm familiar with, and I did hear your presentation clearly. Any other comments from anyone before we move the agenda? Okay, if not, thank you. That was right on point, and we appreciate those budget estimates. I do want to ask a question concerning future reports. Once we get a quorum, should we set up another standing committee? The bylaws do address that under Article 8, standing committees, and there is a section 4 that provides for other committees. So does the board think we need to, hopefully at the next meeting, set up another committee, or should all of the information that Mr. Moore just gave us just fall under Finance and Audit, the Finance and Audit Committee, which he chairs? Should we continue to have that information shared under Finance and Audit Committee? At least at this time. I think that's probably proper.
Yeah, I think at this time, we keep it administratively simple until we have
Okay.
more active participation, because when you set up committees, then you're looking at even more meetings and more time commitment
Right.
from individuals. So I would keep it as simple administratively as possible.
I agree as well.
Okay, so thank you for that update. And we move right into review of master plan options. So again, Mr. Moore, if we could start with your comments
Yeah, and for that, I
about the
want
master plan options.
Sure, and for that, we've actually previously presented the board. We had our architects present the board all three versions of the master plan for Zion Cemetery. And I just wanted to make mention to the board that our master planning is completed now for all of Robles, including the Zion Cemetery part. We included all three of those master plans, so we did not whittle it down to just one plan. There was some likes and dislikes on all three plans. And all three of those will be in our final master plan book, which will be published and become public at the end of June. So we have a scheduled date at Robles Park to actually have a public event where we will unveil the final master plan for the Robles redevelopment, which includes Zion Park. We will make sure that the board members get a copy of that invitation. And if you're able to make it, we'd love to have you there. And then probably in the June meeting would be the appropriate time for me to actually share that whole plan with the board during our meeting. And I'll do so at that time.
Okay, excellent. Any comments? Any other comments? I like the idea of having the three options and keeping that window open so that we still have some opportunities to, and what I think will probably happen, just my comment, is that we'll probably take a little bit from all three, maybe more from one than the other, but I think they all have merit. I have my favorite, but I'll hold those comments until later.
Okay.
So go ahead.
No, I was just agreeing with you.
Yeah. Okay, any other comments before we move on?
Fred, may I
Our
say
next
something? Fred?
yes.
Okay, I just want to make something clear that the event that he mentioned, the press conference, is scheduled for June the 29th from 2 to 4. And I'll need a list of the board members' emails or contact information so as to invite them.
Okay, June 29th from 2 to 4. Is that what I heard? Okay,
Yes,
Yeah, Lillian and Rita will get you that information so you can include it.
thank you.
okay, thank you. That's a Tuesday, June 29th, 2 to 4 p.m. And that'll be at the Zion site,
Yeah.
Yes,
is that right?
No, it's actually not at the Zion site. It's south of Lake. It's on the back, what's we refer to generally as the basketball court.
Oh, basketball court. Okay, okay, got it.
But the information will be in the
All right, I'll be looking forward to that. Sounds good. Okay, review of funding to date and request. Mr. Moore has already referred to some of this.
Yeah, I actually covered
State of
it all.
Florida.
I did cover it all in the budget review.
Okay. So $50,000, state of Florida, city of Tampa commitment of $50,000, and Hillsborough County commitment of $50,000. So he did cover that. Update on site acquisitions. Do we have any news we can share, Mr. Moore?
No, I was just gonna, that was an opportunity for you to just sort of renew your invitation to other board members who would like to be part of, you know, the group that speaks to the other two property owners. At the last board meeting, it was delegated to the chair to actually go ahead and start negotiations with the two property owners to find out what it would take in order to acquire their properties into the Zion Preservation Society. And you opened it up to the rest of the board and asked anyone who would like to participate with you to make it known. So this was your opportunity to give an update on whether or not anyone else has asked to join that committee. And if not, you know, you're free to proceed with discussing those matters with the two owners. I did volunteer to be part of your committee.
Right, right. For those board members who are on this call, participating in this meeting, would anyone like to join our secretary treasurer and your chairman? We have those two commitments to contact the other property owners, Mr. Gonsmart, Mr. Crease.
I would as
Did
well.
I hear? Okay, Ms. Simon. Thank you, Reva. Would anyone else? So we've got three board members thus far.
I'll also join you all.
Okay, thank you, Pastor Presley.
You're welcome.
So we now have 4 persons. And I wanted to open this up because I don't want anyone to say later that this was a closed deal just between 1 or 2 people. So we've opened it up. We have 4 members who volunteered to work with us. I thank you very much. Mr. Moore, if you and I can touch base as to how we proceed, how we do that, how we move forward. I know there have been conversations in the past between persons who are members of this board and those other 2 property owners. I have not been one of those people, so I'm looking forward to these conversations. And we'll move forward. So hopefully we'll have, excuse me, something to report next month. We're not asking the board to take any action at this point, to vote on anything at this point. I don't see the need to do that. So can we move forward with this, or do we have to wait until we have a quorum?
No, I think, no, we're free to move forward. And if it pleases you, I can go ahead and reach out to
Yes.
two owners and get some dates, and then just notify the four of us and put something on the calendar for a virtual meeting. So
Good,
we can all attend.
good. Does that please the other two persons who volunteered?
It pleases me as well.
Me
great.
too. Perfect with
Okay,
me.
so thank you, Mr. Moore. I think there's been ample time for the other property owners to take a look at this, and we all know the situation, and hopefully they will work with us as we want to work with them. So thank you. So let's move forward, Mr. Moore, and we'll be talking hopefully soon about our next steps.
Order.
Comments and announcements from members present.
Brother Hearns, just for, I know my connection went out, and I know you all probably had already went over the minutes. If I can just get the correction of my spelling of my name in the minutes, I greatly appreciate it. It should be B-Y-R-O-N. And if they can put pastor or reverend in front of that, just because I know for the logistics and it being official records, I don't want anybody to say anything different. So those were the corrections I saw. Other than that, the report, and I know I'm late saying it, but the report was outstanding. So I do want to thank Ms. Amitra for doing what she's doing. It's an outstanding report and very detailed.
Thank you, Pastor.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Pastor. Thank you, Pastor. And we'll get those corrections made. I appreciate that. Anyone else have comments? I do have a comment, but I want to wait and see. Ms. Simon, any comments about anything or announcements?
I think we've lost her. I think she lost her connection. I noticed she was moving around.
Oh, okay.
She dropped off.
Okay. Well, I do want to say that I've already, I think, announced to the board my new position, curator of Black History for the Tampa Bay History Center. The History Center is 100% on board with my activities as it relates to this society. So I keep them aware of everything that I'm involved in. I would like to say that for future consideration, when we have a quorum, we might want to consider, we've already talked about possibly adding seats to the board. Now that the Housing Authority has determined, and I think it was an excellent decision, to have the center at Zion dedicated to genealogy. Am I right about that, Mr. Moore?
Yes.
Okay, so we have a genealogy society here in Tampa that's been active for quite a while, African American Genealogy Society that's been active for quite a few years in Tampa. We have other persons who are genealogists who volunteer with different activities. For example, a couple of weeks ago at Robles Park, the University of South Florida project that involves Zion that's headed by Dr. Antoinette Jackson. Several volunteers with that group were here, but not here, we're at the Zion site at Robles Park. And Dr. Cheryl Rodriguez headed up that group. So it makes sense to me to possibly have 1 or 2 seats on our board to consider that, who are genealogists, since we're going to have a genealogy center. I mean, that occurred to me during that walk, and I wanted to just put it out there for consideration by this group in the future, that we take action on whether or not that might be 1 or 2 seats that we consider adding, because it's a profession that I think is very important to have some input from that community when we look at possibly expanding board seats. So I just wanted to put that out for consideration. And we'll revisit that at a future meeting. But if there are any other announcements, we'll make them now. If not, we'll entertain a motion for adjournment.
A motion adjourned.
Is there a second?
Second it.
Okay, it's been moved and second that we adjourn this meeting, and I certainly want to thank you, those of you who participated, because I know there are other things you could be doing. I don't know, because this is not an official meeting, do we need to
No, we
move the
can't.
motion?
Yeah, we can adjourn. We can adjourn without,
Okay, okay. Well, thank you, Mr. Moore. This is a little awkward for me, because normally meetings I take part in are official meetings, but we got a lot of great information. I hope that we can continue to move forward. Should we now set the date for the June meeting?
yeah, it should be on the calendar. It's always the third Thursday,
Okay.
third Thursday at 4:30. So we will send out.
That is the 17th. That is the 17th. June 17th. So that would be our next meeting at
That is
4:30.
Yeah, and it should be already populated on your calendar when you get the calendar invites. It's a repetitive invite.
Okay.
Mhm.
And just 2 weeks ago, my email I had to change my email address. It's not something I wanted to do, but I was kind of boxed in a corner. So my new email address is my first name, Fred Hearns. At everything else is the same. Amarita has it. So when that goes out, Fred Hearns at netzero.net is my new address. So I lost all my old emails, so I'm gonna have to reconstruct some things. Thank you all for your attendance.
Good. Well,
Meeting
thank
is
you all.
now adjourned.
Thank you all. Take care.
All right. Take care. Bye-bye.